Hello, welcome again, and hello to another episode of Transformed and Renewed. Listen, if this is your first time, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, and that way you can stay up to date with our latest content. But make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. And if you are returning, make sure you hit the like button to this video, drop a comment, and let's get into it. So, tonight we're going to be talking about the truth about when it comes to our skin. And I can't say I have done a topic like this, and this won't be the last, but I really did want to discuss some truths about our skin, as well as when it comes to social interactions, as well as a biblical perspective, because a lot of things I've seen over the years, and it led me to really investigate this topic of really how our skin is made up. And there were some things that I found interesting, so you don't want to miss this. So I want to start out with some science to really get this kicked off. So, of course, you may see me, my skin, you can recognize that I'm a brown individual. I don't really like to call myself black because this is black. So technically, I'm brown skin. You can probably even make the argument that I am a shade of brown. Whatever the case is, that is what it is. But based on my skin, most people would say that I have a higher melanin count compared to other individuals. And so let's really understand what is melanin and even the underlying factors about that. And so, again, this can really get into the chemistry, especially when it comes to skin research, even dermatology. And so, just to give you some background information, when it comes to our skin makeup, we basically have what is known as melanocytes, okay? Melanocytes. So it's not spelled Site, it's spelled Cytes. So you have melanocytes, okay? So these are going to be cells that are going to be found in the layer of basal cells in the deepest part of the epidermis, okay? And so and later I'll show a picture of what that looks like shortly. But when we think about it, we have these melanocytes. These are found, again, in the deepest part of the epidermis in a layer of the basal cell. Now, you may be wondering, what does that really matter for? Well, it matters for several reasons, because melanocytes actually synthesize and produce melanin, okay? And so when we really think about melanin, they are only produced because of melanocytes, okay? And there's a process that this is actually called melanogenesis, okay? So when you have the process of melanocytes producing melanin, you have what is known as melanogenesis, okay? So you probably hear a lot of melano throughout this video, but again, these are the terminology. So I do my best to break this down for you. So when we really think about melanin, it has two functions. And of course, you may be aware of one is skin, providing pigmentation for your skin, as well as UV protection. So if you were ever exposed to the sunlight, this can provide you with protection. Having adequate amount of melanin can also do that. So when we think about this, and one thing I wanted to mention was that during the process of producing melanin, you have what is known as the phenolic amino acid known as tyrosine or tyrosine. And this is basically the oxidation of tyrosine by the enzyme tyrosinase. Okay, so you have tyrosine or tyrosine, and this is basically the oxidation of that particular amino acid, and this is caused by the enzyme tyrosinase. Okay, so there's a lot of, I guess, different components when it comes to this, but these are just some of the things when it comes to, again, your skin. Okay, and so I really want to show you a image of what this actually looks like, if I can pull it up. But this is actually some good information once you really see how the basically how the breakdown of melanocytes and melanin is in the body. And so, as I am pulling this up, one thing I did recognize and I wanted to share with you is a question would come up where a person would say, well, I have a higher melanin count, or I even seen shirts where people would say I have melanin. And there's nothing wrong with, being, proud of your melanin. But I want you to know that everyone actually has melanin and everyone actually has melanocytes. And one thing you may not have been aware of is, and this is based on some research I did, and it seemed very consistent that typically everybody, all humans, even when you think about ethnic groups, there is no difference when it comes to melanocytes. Okay. Now, a person may say, well, how do you really explain skin tone or skin color difference? Well, that is based on melanin. So we all, of course, have melanocytes. Okay. And we also have melanin. But when it comes to melanin, that can vary based on, or it can be due to genetics. So, of course, if your mom and dad were brown skinned individuals, or they were lighter skinned individuals or Caucasian individuals, then you likely may have the similar pigmentation that they do, or you'll likely match what they do. Sometimes you may have the parent, who is darker skinned, and the other parent is lighter skinned, and the child ends up becoming mixed in between. Sometimes, very rare, but they could have the same genetics as the darker skinned parent or the lighter skinned parent. It just varies, people. Okay. But one thing I want you to know is that we all have the same amount of melanocytes, but the melanin can vary, and it does vary. And so there is a distinction when it comes down to the skin differences between people in general, ethnic groups. Sometimes even within the same ethnic group, because you can have a race of individuals, or I should say ethnic, not race, but ethnic group of people, and they can vary in just skin pigmentation. You have lighter skin individuals, and then you have darker skin individuals. You have individuals you may not have been aware are a part of an ethnic group just because of their skin, but that is an occurrence that can happen. And so that is one thing I want you to be aware of, is that when it comes down to skin tone with melanocytes and melanin, again, melanocytes, most people typically have the same count, but the melanin can vary based on genetics. And I'm sure there could be other factors, but that is at least one that I am aware of. So let me see if I can pull up this image and see. Can't say that's the best, but let's see. Let's see, layer skin. Okay, so I'm gonna share this with you, and I really thought I could get a good picture. Okay, so let me share this with you people, um, my peeps, individuals. I really want to share this with you, so bear with me. I'm gonna pull this up, but I just wanted to give you a visual of what this actually looks like. So let me see if I can pull this out, and let's share this. Right. Yeah. Let's see that. Yeah. Okay. So let's zoom out on that. And okay. So I'm trying to make this bigger so we can actually see it. Yep, that looks good enough. So this is blurry, and my apologies for that. But again, I wanted to show you how this actually looks when it comes to the melanin and the melanocyte. So up here in this layer, you probably can't see it, but there was another image that actually broke it down. So basically, in this thin layer, and this is actually slightly below the skin layer, is where you have your melanin and your melanocytes, okay? And within this layer, you also have the basal cells, okay? So you have the melanocytes that are encompassed within the basal cells. And this part right here that looks, I guess, like fleshy, that is where you have your melanin, okay? And so depending on, again, how much melanin is produced from the melanocytes, again, this can determine the skin tone and skin color of different individuals. Now, I will say, just to provide you with some additional information, and I think it's also good just to know, is that when it comes down to your melanin, you have various levels. You have having low melanin, which if you have low melanin, this can be due to you can have age wrinkles, you can just have issues with skin cancer, or you can have higher risk of skin cancer if you have a lower melanin count. If you have adequate melanin, then you're basically good. And sometimes you have individuals who have an overproduction of melanin. And this can also lead to, if you have a high melanin count, this can lead to hyper pigmentation. It can even lead to um, other things like freckles, age spots, different issues when it comes to your skin if you're having an overproduction of melanin. And another way that we can see this, how people try to increase their melanin count, is by getting a tan in the sun. And from that, you, I won't say that there are pros and cons, but I will say, if you do plan to tan, that can cause your skin to absorb, or if you, let's say you tan probably once, and again, I'm not an expert, but at least from what I've researched is, once your skin has been darkened or has a higher melanin count from being exposed to the sun, your skin is able to absorb more heat without it causing your skin to be adversely affected. Now, if you are the type of individual where you're just steady in the sun for hours and hours, this can be very dangerous. I really want you to keep that in mind, is not to put yourself in harm's way to increase your melanin count. And that is just something that I want to share with you. Just a suggestion. Again, not trying to tell you what to do, but when it comes to health, I want you to really think wisely, okay? And so with this topic of melanin, like I said, it is important that we understand that when it comes down to this, of course, we appreciate our skin tone, because we are all unique. I know sometimes, at least in the States, there are always, and I feel like at least you always have individuals who see a difference based on your skin tone. And this gets into another area that I do want to touch on just briefly, but I did want to share some science with you. So that way you can take this and you can say, you know what? I didn't realize that when it comes to my skin tone compared to someone who may be lighter than me or of a different ethnic group, that we have the same melanocytes. And I think that that is very unique in terms of how sometimes we may think that we are very different, but there are some things that always remind us that we are not as different as we think we are. So, jumping to, or I ain't gonna say jump, but going in a slightly different direction, is I wanted to touch on this because I know that at least in the States, you have individuals who, see race as an issue. And I can't tell you that it's something that I ignore. Of course, I hear just because, you know, after so many videos or just media, you'll at least see videos of individuals discussing racism. But I really want to just share some biblical scriptures and perspective related to this, because I my goal is not to cause you to feel upset about this, but rather than for us to really have a better understanding and to at least know, like, hey, we are not that different. We are striving for the same thing, hopefully, which is we're trying to, serve Christ, and we are trying to also just live our lives without thinking that we're better than each other. Okay. So when it comes down to this, scriptures that I want to touch on start in Galatians 3:28. And this is the New King James Version. And it says, "There's neither Jew nor Greek, there's neither slave nor free, there's neither male nor female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus." And so, like I said, I wanted to start with some science because I think that science does confirm the word of God, but also because when it comes to health, that's something that, we should all be aware of is our makeup. And, looking at that first part, it says that there's neither Jew nor Greek. And basically what that is saying is that there is basically no differentiation when it comes to being in the kingdom of God. Most people would look at you, they would say, "Oh, are you Indian? Are you Asian? Are you African? And or are you a Jew? Are you a Greek? Are you an Egyptian, Ethiopian? Are you this type of race or ethnic group?" And sometimes, because we may not be as in the Bible, but I'm just going to tell you, I am. And when it comes down to it, it reminds us that, hey, when it comes to God, we are all the same. And He created us individuals, started with Adam and Eve. And so we have to realize that from those two individuals, came many nations. And the Bible talks about that, many nations. But we're not to forget that that we came from those two who came from God. Okay. And so when we really think about that, again, we're not different, which means that we ought to have a heart for one another, not really segregating each other. And again, I know that you would just have individuals who may just have a hard heart when it comes to this topic, but to those who have an ear or who are willing to listen, or if you do struggle with just racism in your heart, I hope that this can really help you, because I do want you to see some of these truths. Again, we just saw about melanin, melanocytes. And again, I'm not discrediting anyone, but I do want you to know the truth about this. And again, let's look at some other scriptures when it comes down to it. Let's see. Let's see. It talks about in Romans chapter, let's see, what was that? Chapter 10, verse 12, same type of concept as Galatians 3 says, "For there is no distinction between Jew or Greek, for the same Lord is for the same Lord over all is rich to all who call upon them." And so this basically just explains what I was saying, which is there is no distinction when it comes to whether you're a Jew or Greek or any type of ethnicity. And so, again, when it comes down to this topic of the truth about our skin and how, at least in America, over the past however many years, the topic of skin color has been an issue. But to be honest, it's an issue because of the sin that's in the world. And because the flesh doesn't want to abide with the spirit, the Bible talks about how the flesh and the spirit war because they're trying to access you. So you have a choice whether you're going to allow the spirit or the flesh to take control. And again, what does this have to do with skin? It has a lot to do with it, especially as this is one of the many topics that has come up in so many political arenas where people will use race, typically the color of your skin, in terms of, you know, this people are not as advantaged as these people. And again, we have to realize that at the end of the day, we serve a God who is able to do so many things. And I'm not going to say that there aren't, issues when it comes to, skin color, but we ought to have a more wiser attitude about it, as well as understanding that when it comes to our skin, hey, this is something that we ought to be, excited about, that we can know this, but it's not something that we should say, you know what, because of my skin color, I'm better than you. No, no, not at all. Because of my skin color, hey, I can learn something about my health that I probably wouldn't have learned otherwise. I can learn about genetics. I can see like how cool it is, like when you really think about it, that a person who has darker melanin and a person who has lighter melanin or less melanin count come together, make a child, and they can come out beautiful. And so, again, that is pretty much the goal of this is, again, to educate us on what our skin is really composed of, as well as help to shed light on, hey, we have to really do better as a people when it comes to any type of discrimination as it relates to our skin color, because at the end of the day, and like I shared earlier, when it comes to our melanocytes, we all have the same amount. And so let that just sink into your mind, as well as these scriptures that says that there is neither Jew nor Greek, which means that God does not see any distinction when it comes to people in terms of their skin color, because we are created in his image. And that is something that hopefully, again, that you can really rest on this concept, because that's one that I have appreciated, learned, especially the science behind it, as well as the biblical perspective. When you really bridge those two, or I guess you are able to connect them, it can bring about, man, just a beautiful learning. So I don't know about you. I hope that you took away something wonderful about this, but me just sharing this with you just made me feel happy. I don't know why, but I'm excited. So if you enjoyed this, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Again, these are just different topics that we like to share, when it comes to science, as well as health and Bible, and how it can really help us to have a better perspective, as well as how we approach individuals, how we look at individuals, being able to look at them as our neighbor versus as a stranger, but really being able to be transformed and renewed. Okay. And so you may say, what did the Bible, what did science have to do? Listen, we are being renewed in our minds. We're being transformed. We're not walking in an old way of thinking, but we are taking knowledge, and it's up to you how you apply that knowledge. Hopefully, that knowledge can lead you to making some better and wiser decisions, and even opening up opportunities for you if you will be willing. So, again, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Support us. We appreciate your support, and stay up to date with our content again by hitting that like and subscribe button. Okay. So, again, family, I hope that you enjoy the rest of your evening, your day. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Feel free to post a comment, because I really do want to follow with you, really want to engage with you. So make sure that you stay up to date with our content, because we have more for you.